Hello and welcome to your next C# tutorial, and in this one we're going to work with text-based variables, and the first one we're going to work with is called a string. So you just simply type in string, and same way we can just give it a name and set its value. Let's call it this is some text, and one thing you have to keep in mind is when working with strings is to use double quotes, because when you use double quotes, anything between those two quotes will be converted to a string automatically. Okay, so even if we type in a number, this is essentially a string. Okay, you cannot store this value into an integer. If I try to do that, if I just simply do that, it's not going to work because this is a string, and as you can read in the error below, it cannot be converted to an integer. So if we change this back, this is some text. We can just print that out on the screen, and just to show you that it works, this is some text. But what if we wanted to add something at the end? How about an exclamation mark? You can do the addition right here when you declare it, or on the next line. I'll explain both. You can do plus and then type in an exclamation mark. So if you run it, same thing. But if you want to do that on the next line, we can do text equals text plus exclamation mark. So very similar to how we work with integers and doubles, but it doesn't really change this thing. It's not gonna do 2 plus 1 equals 3. What it's gonna more like do is 2 plus 1 equals 21. Okay, so it's gonna slap this thing at the end of this string. All right, so if we run it, there we go. You got the exclamation mark. So that's one of the things. You can do a bunch of different stuff with text. I'm not going to go over all of them just yet, but if you simply go to the name of your variable, and then at the end type in dot, you can see a bunch of different methods and properties you can use. Now, how do you differentiate between a method and a property? Methods are these little purple cubes. That means it's a method. And with a method, you have to use, just like main, you have to use these little braces and pass in something in the middle, which is the parameter or an argument. Some methods don't take anything, but some do. I guess I can kind of show a couple. So I guess we can do dot to upper. And because it's a method, you have to use the bracket, and then in this case, it doesn't really take anything. As you can see, it's just empty. We just close the brackets again. And if we run it, what it does is actually converts your string to uppercase. Okay, so all of the string to uppercase. And if there's already, uppercase letters in here, it's not going to do anything to them. So that's one thing, but that's a method that you can use. The other thing is called a property. That is sometimes read only, but there are some you can change. But in this case, what we're going to do is work with length. Actually, if I go back and show you here, it has a little spanner icon. But this is a property, and you can't change it. It's fixed. Okay, and what it's going to do is return the number of characters that there are in your string. So if I do that, if I run it, gives us 17. So there are 17 characters in the text variable. So that's just a couple, but the rest you can kind of experiment and mess around with, and we'll go over most of them later as well. But going back, you know how we added in a exclamation mark at the end? What if we wanted to store just that into a variable? Well, you can certainly use a string. It will work. But the thing is, it's kind of waste, because using strings, it kind of takes a certain amount of memory in your program, and because strings are a bunch of different characters stringed together, and you want it to work with just one character, it's kind of a waste. So for that, what you can do is use a character variable, and in this case, it's called a char. Okay, some people call it car or something. I'm not sure. I just call it char. And this will this will work with just single characters. Um, so just call it something. Let's call it char variable, and set its value to something. So first, let's try to do it the same way we work with strings. So we can do exclamation mark, but you can see it's actually not going to work. And going back, just like I mentioned, if you use double quotes, it's not going to work. It's going to try to convert the exclamation mark back to a string. So for that, what you can do is use single quotes. Okay, so when you're working with characters, be sure to use single quotes. And now if I try to, let me just copy it, and if I try to print this out, print this out here, and everything's good. But let's try to do some stuff with it. How about let's add another exclamation mark to this exclamation mark. Okay. Now we know that characters can only hold one value, one character. But what will happen if I do plus equals and then another exclamation mark? So this statement is simply adding in another exclamation mark at the end. It's not giving us an error, surprisingly, but the result that you're going to get is actually going to be kind of weird. If I run it, you get a B. So we never even typed anything close to a B. So that's kind of weird how we get a B, right? From adding two exclamation marks. But the thing that actually happens behind the scenes is C# actually works with the ASCII codes of the character. Okay, so what is an ASCII code? Everything you type, all the characters, they have a code, a number that represents the character. And actually, if you go on Google, type in ASCII table, and then you can see a list of all of them. This is also in this image, I guess, and you can see all of the characters here have actually values, and we're going to work with decimals. So we work with exclamation marks. So let's see what the value for that is. Where is it? There we go. 33. So that would kind of make sense now if you look at the table, if you look at the exclamation marks value and B's value. This is 66. We got B, capital B as well, because the lowercase b and uppercase B have different values. You got to keep that in mind as well. So what it's actually doing is adding 33 to 33 and converting it to a character and then showing it to you. Okay, so you get a 66. So that's interesting. And you can mess around with that. You can add a bunch of different characters together and see what you get. And similar to string, you have a few different methods that you can use. Not nearly as many, but you can actually use this toString method and convert your character to a string back again. Okay, and this toString method is actually one of those things that's going to be there for pretty much every different kind of variable that you create. Even with numbers, you can, after your variable name, you can say dot toString, and it will convert it to a string. But you have to use the brackets. But again, we'll go over using different methods and all that in later tutorials. But I think that's it for now. Okay, so just keep on messing with this stuff and practicing, and hopefully you can come up with some cool stuff. And in the next one, I guess we'll work with the conditional statements. So depending on a certain condition, you can do one thing or the other. Okay, so you can add a bit of dynamic to your program. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.